Hello all. Shivananda Sharma, Memorial RV College, Video Lectures and ISR Initiative. SSMRV College is one of the premier institutions run by the prestigious RV group of institutions has come up with this unique initiative to engage students at the time of this unforeseen medical emergency caused by corona outbreak. As a socially responsible institution, we would like to connect academically with students to make the good cause cost. In this connection, I, Lavanya BK of Department of Business Administration, has posted a video on the subject organizational behavior and the topic organizational culture. Please watch the video till the end, like, share with your peer groups and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you. Let's start with our first slide where the chapter name is organizational culture. So let us understand what is organizational culture. Organizational culture is simply a combination of two concepts, like wide concepts. One is organization, and on the other hand, you have culture. As we all know, organization is an association of people with the common interests, people with the common caliber, intentions, and motives who come together in order to attain something and to perform towards productivity and just live their lives and to work passionately, to work committed towards their individual objectives and to nurture the organization and meanwhile to nurture themselves. So that's how the organization basically works and functions. Culture, it's something that is actually evolves over a time. Culture includes values, beliefs, and everything that is qualitative, and culture gives us a platform on which we can conduct our selves as humans, and culture gives us a few limitations. Culture gives us a few set rules that we have to follow in order to be ethical, in order to be called as humans. And that's how culture is actually made. Culture is created over a time, just like organizations are. So every organization, it just takes a lot of idea and efforts before you set up an organization. At the same time, it takes a lot of efforts, it takes a lot of productivity and reaching out to customers, commitment and loyalty, everything, in order to keep the organization enduring for years together. So in the course of nurturing your organization and taking it for a longer time and realizing all your intentions and motives and to become that brand in the society where you don't have to prove and endorse through any products or advertisements. In order to grow to that extent, you must have a strong culture. And culture is not something that you plan and it happens, but culture that happens as a part and parcel of your day-to-day life. So organizational culture is something, system, it's a regime that happens within the organization through the days, through the course of years, where people who were working before, people who are working today, and people who will be working tomorrow, they contribute their own bit towards the creation of the culture that includes values, beliefs, and rules, policies, and etc. that makes the conduct of yourself as an employee, as a CEO, as a manager, or whatsoever. It makes it possible, it makes it hassle free, and it makes everything seems to be accountable and ethical. So culture in the organization, when it is given importance and eventually it becomes the culture of the organization, you can call that particular concept as organizational culture. Moving on to the next slide, there are two concepts, okay, that is organizational culture and organizational climate. So and you got to differentiate between organizational culture and climate because they pretty much look alike and sound alike. So let us understand what differentiates organizational culture from climate. So there are 5 possible genres or points through which you can differentiate culture with the climate, starting with the first thing, that is concept. Concept wise, organizational culture is something that happens slowly, eventually, but surely. No culture happens over a night, no culture happens within a month. Culture is something that is created through the course of years, as I mentioned, as people came and people left, and people are here and people will come in the future. Like slowly everybody contributes their culture and you build up that culture in the organization strongly. but it's not something that happens over a day. It happens like eventually. So concept wise, it is a slow process. And cultural organization climate on the other side, it is a current situation. If you want to create a particular climate in the organization, you can create it instantly. You can create it over a day, you can create it over 2 days or a week. It's not something that requires a lot of time and efforts and people's participation, but if there is a need, you can absolutely do it without any importance given to years and ages. So that is organizational climate. The second thing that you have to keep in mind in order to differentiate between these two is evolution. Of course, culture, organizational culture is evolved, it's origined, it's made possible, it's made happen over years, and it's very organically done. Culture is not planned, but culture happens, and without you having any idea that the culture is actually emerging with yourself or within the groups or within the organization, it will just happen over a time. It will happen over years. So it's organically done, but given a lot of years to it, so it evolves slowly. On the other side, you have organizational climate, which can be created instantly, as I told. It's a need based thing, and it's very adaptive. If you want to have the climate to be created and you have the requirement for it, you have the urge for it, you can do it. You don't have to wait for years to have to give the space of organic preparation. You don't have to. So evolution on the cultural climate, it's very need based and happens when there is a requirement. And moving on to the third matter, that is manipulation. As far as culture is concerned, organization culture, manipulation or changes, alterations are very, very rare to be done. They're very rare to be done because you can't possibly do it. As culture is something happens slowly, it just goes down into the roots. If you want to change the culture, it's not something that you can do on the surface, but you have to literally go back to the roots and see where the culture has come from and where the changes can be made. So in that way, manipulation of organization culture is pretty difficult. And organizational climate, since it's need based, since it is done when there is a requirement, since it's done with a short span of time it's created, you can of course do a lot of manipulation, you can of course do a lot of adaptive things that can be done because it's adaptive by nature. Any changes that you want to bring in, you can do it, and it just sinks into the regime, it just sinks into the climate. So manipulation can be easily done in the climate. Fourth point of differentiation is focus. Under culture, the major focus of organization culture is enrichment of values, norms, policies, and everything that can create that strong system that gives a platform for the employees in order to perform, in order to conduct themselves humanly. So they focus on the matters which are very qualitative, which are very, very essential for human conduct. On the other side, organizational climate focuses on the current workplace requirement. So if there is a requirement currently, they can do it because as I told, it's adaptive, it's need based. So they focus on the requirement that emerges at the time and you can instantly do it. So that becomes the focus. And the fifth point of differentiation is perspective. The culture, organizational culture perspective is broader. It's broader because it just takes years on one side, it just takes people collectively, it just takes the work ethics and workplace. So when you see everything, it's a combination of a lot of big matters. It's a combination of broader things. So it's a very broader concept as a whole. Okay, and organizational culture will give emerge to organizational climate. So organizational culture is just like a huge tree, whereas organizational climate can be a branch. Okay, so likewise, in the keeping perspective into consideration, you have organizational climate on the other side. It's narrow with respect to its perspective because if there is a requirement, it can be instantly done. If you want to manipulate, you can do it. And the span through which it can function, the span through which it can impact, it's very small, it's very less. And as I told, organizational culture can give lead to organizational climate, and organizational climate is a part of organizational culture. Okay, let's go to the next slide. In the next slide, factors influencing organizational culture are mentioned. There are four major and very important factors that will for sure have an impact over the culture of the organization, and that in fact makes the organizational culture emerge and function. Let us understand it one by one. So the first one is individual working with organizations. As I told, the entire essence of organizational behavior just boils down to people. It's the people who make it possible. It's the people who are the essence of the organization. Without people, you can't think of anything else. Of course, you require money as your capital investment, as giving salaries or payments, the obligations with respect to monetary things that you have to take care. You require raw materials, you require technology, everything is accepted. But what is very, very important in order to execute your plans and strategies and everything, and to become a global brand, or in order to become a brand that is acknowledgeable within your domestic market, it's the people who make it possible. In the same perspective, in the same way, if you want to have your organizational culture to possibly happen, it's the people who were there previously, it's the people who are now, and the people who are going to come in the future are the ones who are going to contribute their own bit towards the preparation and evolution of the organizational culture. So that's how people are very important with respect to culture creation. And the second one is gender of the employee. Gender of the employees who are existing in the organization, who were there previously, will have an impact on the culture. Because suppose if the organization had a lot of male dominating scenarios previously, the same can be carried forward for the years to come. On the other side, if it believed in the concept of equal respect, equal treatment, equal pay, not giving importance to which gender or what society they belong to, what community they come from, then the same culture can be carried forward too. So it's all about the combinations of the different incidences or scenarios that happen with respect to gender will have an impact on the culture of the organization. And next you have is nature of the business. What you do will lead to the preparation of the culture that will be existing in your organization. For example, if you run an education institution, the culture there is different. If you run a bank, the culture there is different. If you run a stock exchange, the culture there is different. What you do has a close association with the culture that is going to happen soon or later. Okay, so likewise, nature of the business will to a greater extent become a major contributor towards the culture that is going to happen or to be prepared in your organization. And the fourth one is management style. So every time a management leaves and a new management comes to take up the vacant positions, it can be CEOs, managers, panel directors and everything, they come up with their own style of handling people. They come up with their own approaches and strategies, and likewise they come up with their own intentions and approaches towards having a culture that they choose. So if the culture is already existing, the culture is not something that goes strongly for years together. A culture can be made, it can be changed, it can be made a lot of changes if you think a culture is lacking somewhere. If the culture is lacking few things, there are quite a number of loopholes existing here and there. You can always have a control over them. Of course, it's not something that is done instantly, but it will take years in order to slowly integrate the changes that you believe are required to be brought in. So likewise, management styles here nothing but the way the managers, especially the leaders, they choose to have an approach towards employees, customers, brands, productivity and everything. So it's on them as well. It's not just the employees, it's not just the gender, it's not just the nature, but also the management style, the approaches that they have will also have an implication on the culture. So these are the four major factors influencing organizational culture. Let's go to the next slide. Very important. Morale is mentioned here. Morale or morale, it's a mindset. It's about your approach. It talks about basically three things. It talks about enthusiasm, zeal, and commitment. Like, morale is that mindset or mental attitude of an individual. Let us not say whether he is an employer or employee, because after all of us are individuals, all of us are human beings, not giving importance to the designations that we work for or the process that we work under. But morale is an individual thing, it's a human being thing, where it concentrates on enthusiasm, zeal, and commitment. Like, as an individual, how much do you feel committed? How much do you feel loyal? How much do you feel honest? How much of the enthusiasm and zeal that you carry in order to be together, in order to be with your team? If you are somebody who like to be with people, if you are somebody who is very committed to your people, if you are somebody who likes the concept of working with people, there comes this morale. And it's not just the positive side of the morale also has a negative side to it. If you are somebody who lies a lot, if you are somebody who's not accountable, if you are somebody who wants to isolate yourself and not to be shown or seen with people, there also morale is there. So morale talks about this qualitative aspects, which is basically concentrates on the concept of togetherness. Like, as an individual, how much do you feel like being with people, not just being existing there, but being qualitatively and working with them. If you can understand the concept of morale, the rest of the things, not only in the chapter but any chapter of organizational behavior or anywhere, things are made better. Because organization, it's not just association of people, but people here must be voluntarily willing to be together. So that is concentrated or understood with the concept of morale. Let's go to the next slide, where the extension of morale is mentioned, that is types of morale. Morale has two classifications under that. It has individual and group morale. On the other side, you have high or low morale. Individual morale is the morale, that is the qualitative mental attitude of togetherness, commitment, and loyalty and everything of an individual. As an individual, how committed I am to my people. As an individual, how much I like to be with my team. As an individual, how much I dislike to be with my team. It can be both negative and positive approaches towards the team, but what an individual beholds talks about individual morale. Group morale is a collective morale of everybody in the group. Suppose a group has 12 people in it. What is the content or quotient of the morale that each one carries and put together aggregatively talks about the group morale. That is commitment, zeal, and enthusiasm of everybody in the team and their willingness to be as one talks about group morale. The second one is high or low morale. If you're mostly committed, if you're mostly honest, if you mostly like to spend your time with the team, if you mostly feel that your team is the best, or you feel that you do a particular job so well and so profoundly because you are a part of a team. So if you are somebody like that, your morale quotient is high in you. Low morale or poor morale, it's you just wait for a chance to sneak away, you just wait for a chance to be manipulative, you just wait for a chance to just to disabandon your team if you want to. That talks about your poor morale or low morale quotient. So this way morale can be classified and understood. Let's move on to the next topic, the next slide, that is organizational effectiveness. Organizational effectiveness is about the extent of predetermined proactive decisions, objectives that are taken by the organization, how they can be realized quickly. Every organization just doesn't just happen without any preconceived notions. Every organization in any part of the place, any part of the globe happened with the cause. So if you have a strong cause, and that's why you are here as a organization working today, you're working as an employee or employer, doesn't matter which designation you belong to, because after all an organization requires everybody, every strata. So organizational effectiveness talks about the speed through which you can achieve or realize the goals that were set before proactively. So that talks about your effectiveness. If you can achieve it at a greater pace, like fastly. Your effectiveness is something brilliant. If at all you have set your targets, you've set your approaches, you've set all the things that you must be reaching out to, but you were unfortunately weren't able to reach out to it on the time, on the day set, probably your effectiveness is lacking there. So organizational effectiveness talks about the resource that is available as people, and the confidence that comes up with your productivity and the caliber that you have, and how quickly you can realize your goals. Talks about organizational effectiveness. Let's go to the next slide, which talks about achieving organizational effectiveness. There are 5 basic ways to enhance your organizational effectiveness. The first one is make use of human resource. Perhaps the most easiest and the most important concept of understanding nurturing an organization or enduring an organization is to treat your human beings, treat your employees as human beings first, respect them, because you might have the greatest of ideas and greatest of technology and inventions made, but with people it can be done possible. Without people, no matter whatever you have, nothing is possible. So it's very important, you have to respect them first, make use of them first. And using people doesn't mean that you have to exploit them, like squeeze them out and throw them once their utility is over, but using up to a limit that they can perform effectively, and after that give them the break to rest and regain the energy and get back to work one more time. It's not just that you make them work and pay something that is very mediocre. It must be equal to what they do and what they pay. There must be a correlation, because people after all work for the money and benefits, and I think what they do and what you give for them as a payment, as salary, must be equivalent. So make use of the human resource and make sure that they stick with you and you make the resources required. So that is the first one. And the second one talks about focus on education and growth. It's important at some point in time our education or the values that we have with us might be updated, needs to be upgraded. So in that way you have to focus on giving education, giving training programs and everything, just to uplift what they have with them. And third way of organizational effectiveness achieving is keep the customers in mind, because you're not doing this particular job, you're not setting an organization for the sake of yourself, you're doing it for the customers. If they are satisfied, everything is fine. So keep your customers in mind, see how you can pursue them, see how you can do it possible. And fourth one is work on quality service and products. There shouldn't be any delay in giving importance to the quality and achieving it. Quality is something that is very important to be focused on, and there mustn't be any compromise in the quality. So if you give quality products, your customers will be your customers, you will have your brand enriched, you will have your brand endorsed without any advertisements. It can be just blindly trusted by people. So make sure that you concentrate on the quality and uplift it and do everything possible, and no compromise on the quality. And the fifth one, the last one, to achieve organizational effectiveness is use technology. So technology can be the knowledge, it can be the newest of ideas turned into equipments, products and everything that makes our work a lot easy. And it's very important that you switch on to new technologies that are upgrading everywhere, every day. It's important that you pick them so that you can integrate them into your regime and make things work a lot better and reachable. So these are the 5 very important ways, very easiest ways of achieving organizational effectiveness. Let's go to the last slide of the chapter, which talks about organizational power and politics. Power in politics, it's a human thing. Power, liking, power approaching or adoring power, and doing politics in order to make sure that they procure and safeguard themselves. It's something that is very general, something that is sunk into our system and into our bodies. So organizational power in politics, it's not something that is very variant to what we live in our day-to-day life, not giving importance to the regime of organization, but in our daily lives, I mean to say, like just giving importance to the official conduct of people or association to be called as organization. Power in politics, it's not left them also. It's very basic when people in the apex position of the organization, they fancy power, they want to do politics to safeguard themselves. It's very common. It's not something that is very uh, uh, fascinating. It's very general, as I told. So if they fight for power, if they fight for politics, if they want to procure themselves, if they want to safeguard themselves, there can be, very importantly, it's about the money that they can get through the positions that they have. It can be the respect they can get if, having been in the position. It can be any such benefit that makes them to go for the struggles or the fights in order to back off the power with them or keep it with them and do politics and everything. So there are basically three ways, or these three struggles that people in the organization have to face in order to safeguard their power in through politics. The first one is the power struggles in family owned business. If at all a particular organization is run since years by a single family, of course successors are the people who will take over. It's the father, and then to a son, then to a grandson. That's how the chain goes. So if they want to have this particular family business to be running, it is made possible only when a successor from the same blood comes to take over the particular vacant position. Preferably in an apex position. So there also you will have a lot of struggles and fights with respect to power, and a lot of politics with respect to this can happen. And the second one is impact of power struggles on stakeholders. So if there is stakeholders, can be your employees, customers, shareholders, suppliers, bankers, or anybody who indirectly helps you to run your company, run your organization. So in that way, if there is any such power fights or power struggles happening, it is mostly the employees who will be disturbed, or who will be in the threat, who will be punished. Because if there is a family business running and there are two successors who want to take over the business, there are a lot of fights happening, there are a lot of harmony lost, a peace lost. Of course the same disturbance will be put on to the employees who are the workers of the company, whose productivity on a daily basis counts, yet they are not able to do it because there is a lot of internal struggles or issues that are happening, which will not mostly affect the other part or other stakeholders, but mostly the employees. They are the ones who will be struggled the most if there is any such power or politics things that are happening in the organization. And the third one, the last one, talks about the power and politics are integral to human nature. As I told, whether it is an organizational context or a house context or a society context or a institution context, it doesn't matter. It's an inevitable thing. It's a human quality. It's very important to understand the obviousness of the power, like wishing for power and doing politics, is something that is sunk into our system. So these three can define the organizational power and politics. So that's all to the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share and comment. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.